Welcome, everybody, to the Sunday Sewcase, where we do our part to elevate and celebrate the quilting and craft community. I am LaTanya Patillo, owner and operator of the establishment, and I am here today with Miss Yolanda Cofield, who is also owner and operator of Sanity Quilting for all of your quilting needs. She is a fantastic and wonderful quilt artist, and I wanted to make sure that I brought her here today so we can have a conversation about her art and her quilts, this beautiful quilt behind us and all of the wonderful things that she does. So, welcome, Yolanda.
Thank you.
So, let me tell you a little more about Miss Yolanda. Yolanda has been creating traditional quilts for more than 15 years, and most recently, her artworks have been inspired by storytelling, her personal history, world events, and the encouragement of her family and friends who receive her creations. She enjoys creating with Ankara fabrics, batiks, and repurposing unique folklore that is associated with Black ancestry. She enjoys designing pieces to express her feelings as they relate to events that impact the world around her, while sewing sanity into the world to promote visual understanding. Hence the name, Sew Sanity for all your quilting needs. So, welcome again to the Sunday Sewcase.
Thank you.
You're so welcome. You are welcome. Glad to have you here today. And we are going to have a wonderful conversation. We're going to talk, we are going to chat. So feel free to jump right in with your answers and let us know what's happening in your art world. I always start by asking all of the artists who come on the channel, what brought you to quilting?
That is a great question. So honestly, I grew up in a small town, historical Selma, Alabama. My mother
Mhm.
was a single parent of five, and I was the middle child. And she was very adamant that none of her children would be idle. So when I was about 14 or 15, I was big enough or old enough, and in our community there was two elderly ladies who lived in our community. It was like the grandmothers of the community,
Mhm.
and she would get me up every Saturday. Go see what Miss Tyler needs. Go see what Miss Austin needs.
Mhm.
And honestly, Miss Austin was the oldest, so I would go to Miss Austin's house first, make
Mhm.
sure all the, chores or whatever she needed done was done. And then I would go to Miss Tyler's house next. And
Mhm.
Miss Tyler, she was the younger of the elders, but she loved to hand piece and quilt and cook and all the fun things, gardening, all of that. And she made sure, she's like, I don't want you to learn how to clean up. You know how to do that. I want to teach you something that you can have for life. And I was like, okay. So we started off with tea cakes, and
Mhm.
then we started off with naming all the flowers and things in her garden. And
Wow.
then next, she sent me in her bedroom and she said, look in the closet, there's a box. I brought the box out and it was full of all these beautiful little tiny pieces. And I picked them up and I asked her, what are we doing with this? And she
Mhm.
said, sit down. I'm going to teach you how to whittle on fabric. And I'm like, huh?
Wow.
Whittle? She's like, yeah, And she got the needle and thread. And we literally started hand piecing. And we created quilt tops out of all these unique cut up pieces from clothing. She really didn't have the means to buy fabric. So whatever she had at home,
Mhm.
she repurposed into a beautiful quilt.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, I do not have one of her quilt tops to say I can cherish that piece, but I have the skills, the memories, and as you can see today, I'm still whittling on fabric.
Yes, I love that. Whittling on fabric, right? And so many lessons. I think what is wonderful about that story is one, it's always a blessing to sit at the feet of the elders, right? To sit, to be there, to learn, to listen. And even when it is a chore and it's something that we are required to do, I think it's always beautiful to be able to come away from that experience saying, I learned something, I had
Mhm.
this time. And, you know, I won't talk about your age, but I know in my age now, I appreciate all of those memories and opportunities. And it clearly sounds and is demonstrated by your work that you appreciated those times too. So
Yes.
that is fantastic, and love that you so started with what you had on hand, what Miss Austin had on hand, right? So it
Yeah.
wasn't going out and buying the trendy design. It was making something that was purposeful and beautiful out of what was already being used. And I
Right.
just think those roots are always, it's always powerful to hear how we maintain that connection.
Hmm.
Yeah. So clearly, your first quilt was with Miss Austin,
With
uh,
Miss Tyler.
Miss
Miss
Tyler,
Tyler. Yes,
excuse
ma'am.
me, that
No.
you still don't have. But what was your first solo quilt project?
So, as you know, teenagers, we're flighty. We do things, we learn it, but we run away from it. And for years, I did. I ran away from quilting. I didn't appreciate it until I became a married wife, military wife, and we
Hmm.
were stationed in Fort Riley, Kansas, and we were away from home. And I had just had my child. He's a young man now, but I wanted something to do that took me away from all of the newness of military family life and things. And honestly, I did not have my community, so I decided to pick up something that I was familiar with. And then,
Hmm.
of course, we end up moving to Fort Polk, Louisiana, which is in the middle of nowhere. Yes,
Right.
but it actually worked out for me because I started nursing school then, and
Hmm.
the school was so demanding, and it was like every class you had to have the perfect grades or you couldn't move to the next course. So
Wow.
with that stressor, I needed to find something to create, and I purchased my first sewing machine,
Hmm.
and I had never used a sewing machine, didn't know how to thread it, nothing.
Right.
But surely I learned, and believe me, I messed up a lot of pieces of fabric, couldn't figure out how to get a shape. I just knew this long piece of fabric was something that I wanted to make beautiful. But
Hmm.
over time, taking classes, talking to all the little ladies in the quilt shops and in the local Walmart, and I'm telling you, just being brave, being courageous, and remember what my grandmother, well, I call her my grandmother, even though she wasn't my grandmother, but Miss Tyler was like a grandmother.
Right.
But I remembered her lessons was it's okay, cut it, whittle on it, and just move forward. So
Right.
there were a lot of technical errors because I did not know
Right.
a quarter inch seam or all that. I just knew that I needed these straight lines to try to get a shape.
Hmm. Hmm.
My son actually has his first quilt. It's a rag quilt with blue jeans,
Hmm.
recycled blue jeans on the back, flannel on the top, and each one of the squares have cotton infused between it. So it's like a quilt as you go, but it's when you wash it, it gets raggedy. So
Hmm.
it has a lot of fringe and frills, and he still to this day, he's 26 years old. He loves that quilt.
Wow. Wow.
So I
And
still have my first quilt.
wow. And that was machine pieced and hand pieced, or
Machine and hand piece, yes.
machine and hand piece. So that's a testament to a few things. The durability of that, right? It is connected to the utilitarian piece. So you use things that you had in conjunction with new things, right?
Mhm.
To make something for your son that is lasting, that he cherishes. So that is huge. You have to tell him to take a picture if he wants to share and send it so we can see how that work has lasted over this time. But that is wonderful that he treasures it and still has it and appreciates it for what it is. That's lovely. So do you feel confident because you learned the way you did from Miss Tyler, that you feel empowered and courageous enough to mix flannel with denim and cotton? Because we know that, a lot of times people believe you have to do things a certain way, use certain fabrics together, and, are feel kind of constrained because of what they think quilting is. Tell us a little bit about how all of those processes kind of shape how you approach the quilts that you make.
So honestly, I'm actually very appreciative that I did not learn the new and current way of quilting, meaning, all the classes where they teach you to use light cottons or light fabrics to light weights to get these pristine pieces and pristine corners and,
Mhm.
and points.
Right.
But honestly, I love the fact that I learned from her, and my mother's fourth sister, fourth eldest sister who was living at the time. She was the only quilter in the family, and she was also a utilitarian quilter.
Mm-hmm.
Even though she lived in California, she would send quilts every year down to Alabama and say, these are my treasures. I want you to have one or whatever. And when she found out that I was making quilts and she knew that I did it in a different format than what she does, because by the time I started quilting, I started venturing towards more cottons and trying to learn the rules
Mm-hmm.
and mix these things together so I can get more of I call it a pristine look.
Mm-hmm.
And I wasn't really trying to quilt my heritage. I was trying to quilt the quilts I saw in the magazines or out, the patterns that were commercially available.
Mm-hmm.
But once she saw my quilt, and I wasn't machine finishing, like quilting the quilts. I was actually still trying to hand quilt them and make sure that the stitches were just right. And do you know she even asked for that quilt and asked me to make her, because she was like, I want you to make me one of your quilts so I can have, and I want it big enough for my bed. And I was still a young quilter,
Right.
did not know how to make a queen size quilt.
Wow.
So it was not straight. It
Right.
was wonky. It, it never did quite straighten
Mm.
up.
Right.
I'm telling you, she wore that quilt with pride on her bed and
Yes.
made sure all of us knew and all of her friends knew that her niece made her a quilt that,
Yes.
and once I was old enough to go to California and see her quilt, I went independently with my family, and she had that quilt on her bed,
Wow.
and it looked great
Yeah.
on the bed. But I appreciate the lessons even from within the family because she is the only one that I know of in the family who
Mm-hmm.
quilts.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, she has passed now, but I still have about five of her quilts, and they are very heavy. They
Mm-hmm.
weren't the manufactured quilting batting that we can buy. She had bulk batting, loose
Mm-hmm.
batting, and she would stuff, stitch, stuff, and
Yep.
those things are so heavy.
Yes.
So you
Yes.
don't need any extra covers when you wear her quilt. You pay all this money for a weighted blanket. She
Right.
was making weighted blankets before it became in style.
Yes. Yes. Understand that. My grandmother, who was the quilter in our family, we recently found um, some of her quilts. and she's passed for some time, but there were still quilts in her home, and those things are so heavy. And we've had quilts of hers before, but though to your point, the materials that they used, what they used as batting, what they used just to sew with, were so heavy and so warm. Um, it's the perfect quilt to cuddle up with. It's a comfort quilt if you don't feel well, but you need that hug. You need a weighted blanket, something to draw you in. Perfect quilt. So I get that for real, and it's exciting to know that you still have several of her pieces,
Mhm.
and that she was excited to have yours. What an honor. So tell us a little bit more about how, again, that continued to shape you. I mean, you were still a young quilter, and you made this massive queen size quilt, right? So clearly you stretched, right? You stretched your skill, you stretched your level of technique. How do you continue to stretch now that you have some time and techniques behind you as a quilter? What are the ways that you stretch in your craft?
So first, don't be afraid to try new things. You see, so I have self-diagnosed myself as dyslexic,
Hmm.
meaning that I can't truly follow a written pattern. I
Hmm.
don't understand it. It makes no sense to me.
Hmm.
But if I see the final picture or I see something in the world that I like,
Hmm.
a specific shape, a specific flower, or whatever,
Hmm.
I figure out how to draft it my own personal way.
Hmm.
And then I start working on how to make it into an actual piece of cloth.
Hmm.
So I love that I still don't have that, I call it technical training because I don't feel afraid to try new things.
Right.
So with that being said, I see, a box outside that has this beautiful diamond wavy pattern drawn in it, and that inspires me. And I was like, those half square triangles behind you. I was like, I love the richness of Ankara. I love that, but I didn't want it to just be black.
Right.
So what I said I need different forms of black fabric. I
Hmm.
want all the Ankara I could find. I don't care
Hmm.
what color it was, because even if they aren't the same pattern or the same color, they work well together. So I was like, let me find as many pieces as I can.
Yes.
And no, my half square triangles are not perfectly square, but hey, if you cut them down and make them, you can get them to look halfway decent.
Well, let me just say this. Halfway decent does not describe this work of art that is
Oh,
behind you. So let's get into talking about this beautiful piece, and we'll get back to some of the other
I'm
questions.
sorry.
But I think this is a beautiful, to your point, testament of your use of what some would consider a traditional design, right? Or a traditional pattern, which is half square triangles, and the use of it to make something that is contemporary with this design, and use these fabrics with all of these beautiful colors. Um, this is called Vortex.
Yes.
And how large is the quilt, Yolanda? It is
I
large.
think it's about 70 by 70.
Okay, 70 by 70. Folks, if you are in the area watching, if you are want to take a trip down here to Parliament Quilts, come and see this beautiful piece that is hanging in our shop. It is half all comprised of half square triangles. What's unique about it is the layout, right? How you put them together, and then all of the individual fabrics. So if you look at these rows, right? there are so many different patterns. I'm just amazed at how you took you how you looked at it, how you laid them next to each other. There are no two, as far as I can see, that are the same next to each other. And there are all these various blacks and multiple prints of the Ankara. It really is amazing to see. And then there's the beautiful spiral quilting, and you'll see close-ups of this as well. But it is a gorgeous, gorgeous piece. So let's talk a little bit. You've shared how what kind of inspired you to do this piece, and how you developed your technique to do it. But what else should we know about Vortex? What started it? How long did it take? Like, tell us a little bit. Tell us the origin story of this piece.
So, honestly, COVID recently happened,
Hmm.
and I finally joined social media, and I found my people. I found the quilters who quilt like me, look like me, and did all this courageous things that I've been having like stirring in my head, but I didn't know how to get there. So there was a virtual class on half square triangles that I took, and it was amazing. I'm sorry I can't remember the young lady's name at the time, but it was one of those free classes where you just kind of listen to her, watch her do her thing, and I learned truly how to my best to put together half square triangles because I was not doing a good job on my own. But
Hmm.
she showed me how to really square them up and make sure that they all fit together, no matter
Hmm.
what size you made them. But
Hmm.
needless to say, I knew that I wanted the pattern to kind of play like a like it's drawing you in, but I did not want it to just be a diamond. I wanted the diamond to move. So when you're able to show the quilt, you'll see that it is not just, one. It looks like I call it a labyrinth almost, like you're trying
Hmm.
to figure your way out of the maze.
Right.
And it reminded me of what the times were in that moment during COVID. That it was I felt like we were stuck in a vortex. So
Hmm.
that's hence the name. The quilt is called Vortex because it just reminded me of how I was feeling in that moment. But
Hmm.
I wanted it to not be a vortex that we couldn't get out of.
Right.
So
Right.
there
Right.
is a path out of that quilt if you
If
it
you look,
has it has multiple
yes.
uh I call it little key hiding things in there, but
Mhm.
I mean, it's special to me. I really had fun making that quilt
Yeah.
and designing it. And no, I don't have a true design wall. My
Hmm.
floor is my design wall.
Got you. Got
So
you.
yeah,
You
so I laid it out on the floor and just kept building.
Yes, again, using what you have to create this art. And that's what I love the story. I love what drove you to design this one, the meaning of it, right? It's drawing you in, but there are many ways to get out of it. I love that. What I love about how you approach your work is, one, your courageousness, that there's always this hidden message behind um, all of the pieces that are non-traditional, right? That you've shown and that you create. There's always something more to it. And to me, that is the true measure of art, right? Because it's beauty at face value, but then there's also this kind of deeper thing that you have to get to know, and you have to ask the questions and interrogate, right? So many different interpretations of it. So I love that. And again, half square triangles, right? So, folks, here is an example of what you can do with that technique. And it is not always you get it on first try, right? You have to practice it and work with it. So this is a lovely testament to that. How many fabrics do you think you used in this quilt?
I honestly don't know. I'm gonna be honest. So unfortunately, I have a problem. I own up to it. I love Ankara. I collect Ankara, so there's quite a bit in there.
Yeah.
And I try to make sure that when I use the Ankara, I mix in some new. I bring in some of the old ones, like from other projects that I've done before. And
Mhm.
if the piece is big enough to salvage, I try to utilize it. So
Mhm.
because fabric is not cheap,
Right. Right.
and carrots are not cheap either. So with that being said, I try to make sure I get as much use out of
Mhm.
the yardage that I have. So
Yeah.
there are honestly probably about maybe 20 plus different pieces in there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow.
It may be 20, maybe more. I'm not sure. I did not keep I just sat down one day and I just started the cutting process and
Yeah.
kept going. Once I learned the technique or how to square up half square triangles, I
Right.
really just went for it.
Right. Right.
So,
Wow. Wow.
and honestly, those are not all the squares that ended up, all the squares did not end up in that quilt.
Yeah.
There's a second quilt out there
Yeah.
that someone purchased, but it's the sister to the leftover squares from that quilt.
Okay. Oh, that's
Yeah.
awesome. Okay. Wow. I love it. You are, again, continue to be an inspiration to me. And I know you are inspiring to others, so much so that your art and your quilts have been selected to be in a variety of exhibits and even now have been featured in a book that is being shopped around, that is available. Tell us a little more about that, sharing that good news.
Okay, so that good news actually, again, COVID was hard on a lot of people, but actually, I feel like it really pushed my art, my creativity, my talent for sewing. Um, Again, I joined social media and I learned that there were art exhibits of quilts, and I was like, huh? You know, I mean, you grow up, you see these things, but you don't know that that could be you.
Right.
So, with some encouragement, a few friends say, at least submit something. It doesn't matter where, just submit it. And if it gets accepted, great. And if it doesn't, it's okay.
Yeah.
The answer is not always yes. But the quilt that's currently in the book is called Good Trouble by Good Trouble Quilts exhibit. It's through the Atlanta Quilt Festival.
Hmm.
Um, and Miss Ovi Brentley, she's out of Atlanta. She has, if I'm not mistaken, there's three exhibits of that's dedicated to Congressman John Lewis, who passed.
Hmm.
With me being from Selma, Alabama, and the Edmonds Pettus Bridge truly is 3 miles from my mother's home where we grew up.
Hmm.
Um, so crossing that bridge was an everyday thing for me. I'm not
Hmm.
joking. There's some reason we had to go into town, and in order to go into town, you
Hmm.
had to cross the Edmonds Pettus Bridge.
Wow.
So Bloody Sunday 60th anniversary was this year.
Hmm.
And once I saw the exhibit announcement and call for entry, I already knew what I wanted to do. I wanted to represent John Lewis at his younger age when he was in Selma on Bloody Sunday, when he was also he did a speech on Congress, on the steps of Congress, that basically said, on that day, I left my blood, sweat, and tears on this bridge, and I knew exactly what I needed to do. So
Hmm.
the Edmonds Pettus Bridge came about. The young picture, somewhat abstract, that may be John Lewis, but And a quote from from his speech.
Mhm.
And I made sure I found this cute fabric that had the United States and Route 66, and right in there it had the Selma Montgomery route on it.
Mhm.
So I made sure I pinpointed that Selma was here, and it turned out really nice.
Mhm.
So the fabrics weren't the right color, so there's a lot of tea dyeing and
Mhm.
inking and needlework, handwork done on that quilt to make sure that the message that I wanted to present, that rustic
Mhm.
look, to show that it was not a new quilt. And when you look at the bridge, the Edmonds Pettis Bridge, the fabric looks like there's lots of names written on it. But
Mhm.
I wanted to make it feel like all the people from Selma and beyond who were there on Bloody Sunday up to now
Mhm.
crossed this bridge. So you can see that there's like tiny writing. It's like,
Mhm.
like you're signing your name on the wall. So,
Mhm.
yeah.
Wow.
But I had a great time making that quilt because it made me address some things in my own personal history. Yes,
Mhm.
I'm not old enough for what happened at Bloody Sunday, but growing up in Selma, I knew of it. It was in our face literally every day. My mom, she was a civil rights activist to a point, but not like out there. Well, as you know, they call them unsung, unknown heroes.
Right.
She definitely organized and made sure the community knew what to do and how to do, and you know, and I feel
Mhm.
like that's part of my upbringing too. That my mother made sure we knew our history.
Yeah.
So it's very important that we share our story, especially in these times right now.
Sure.
Yeah.
Especially in these times. Yes.
Yes.
Right.
That
So
we're
you go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, I'm sorry that our history is literally being erased in our
Mhm.
faces. So we need to make sure our
Yeah.
stories are told.
Yeah, for sure. And you've captured it, and folks, you'll be able to see some of the images linked in the show notes and in some segments that I'll share on the channel. But it is a beautiful representation of Congressman Lewis and the bridge, and I think is so again powerful to hear you speak about what it took to capture the vision that you had, right? So you had fabrics that weren't the right color, so then you tea dyed them in order to achieve the visual patina that you wanted to capture, right? That aged kind of look from a certain time periods past, right?
Right.
Talk a little bit more about all of the different techniques that you use in your quilts, not just that one, but in all of your quilts. What are some of the different kind of techniques or methods that you've used to achieve your vision?
So currently, I have another quilt that has been accepted. It's going to be shown in North Charleston in June, if I'm not mistaken. It's called "Let Me Teach You Something,"
Mm-hmm.
and it's a representation, an applique representation of my quilt mother, who is Miss Tyler.
Mm-hmm.
I had a photo of her, and I went to Staples and had it blown up to the largest size I could get it. I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really trying to make it look exactly like her. I was trying to get her body language, her posture, and her glasses. And she always wore, even with her just sitting around the house or doing whatever or sitting on the porch, she wore her glasses, she
Mm-hmm.
wore her necklace, she wore her earrings, she wore
Mm-hmm.
her brooch. So
Right.
I made sure all those things became a part of this quilt.
Mm-hmm.
And I found this old quilt similar to what we used to make at her home, but I found it at a yard sale somewhere. And
Mm-hmm.
it had all these polyesters and old dresses, corduroy, all kind of fabrics. I loved it, and I snatched it up really fast because I was like, "Oh my gosh, they're selling this this lady's belongings to for like pennies," and the
Wow.
lady was like, "I'm not gonna It's only $1 or two, whatever." And it
Wow.
was a beautiful. I know it was about twin size top. The top
Hmm.
was a twin size hand piece 4-patch quilt top. And I was like, oh my goodness. But anyway, I saved it.
Hmm.
So I held it for years, but I knew I wanted to do something special with it. I just didn't know at the time when I bought it.
Hmm.
I promise you, it is now a part of, let me tell you something. It's hanging off of
Wow.
Miss Tyler's lap, and it looks like she's whittling on the fabric. So that's what I wanted to capture.
Wow.
And it was accepted into this show. It's called Praise of the Ancestors. So hopefully you'll be in North Charleston this June. You should be able to see it.
Awesome.
But yeah,
Yes. So that experience again is a speaks to how the connection of the people before you really continue to imprint on you and your art, right? Um, and of course, I would say because you have the connections in that way that you are connected to your work spiritually, um, technically, that you get selected, that you get chosen because you can see and, in my opinion, you can feel all everything that you put into your quilts and your art, right? Like what it means to carry on the tradition, to honor your ancestors, and to capture, their experience through your experience. I just think that is really, really beautiful. So that's wonderful, and to know the depths of all of the the depths that you will go to achieve that, right? You could easily decide to go to a shop and try and find a fabric that meets your needs, right, or that achieves a look. But again, you try different techniques. That something just wasn't right, and you did what you needed to do to get it there. So I'm look forward to sharing your quilts with your pictures with the world when you're able to. So that's beautiful, beautiful,
thank
beautiful.
you.
So I will say you shared a lot about your family, your extended family, who have inspired you. But are there any, kind of modern or contemporary quilters or programs or opportunities that inspire you?
Well, honestly, my extended family, I call them they're my soul sisters.
Hmm.
There's five of us. We're out of St. Louis. So being a military spouse, we travel quite a bit. And for a while, our home was in St. Louis. And I joined this wonderful church who had an awesome youth program that had the amazing quilter in there. Her name is Hattie Thompson.
Hmm.
She is not a well-known quilter outside of the quilt world, but when I tell you this lady can precision quilt and
Wow.
teach you about the history of quilts and teach you how to make your work look presentable, even if you're just giving it to your family, you
Hmm.
know, and teaching you how to just be of service to others. And with that being said, the quilt behind me is actually a combination of the Quilt Sisters.
Hmm.
So we realized quickly that we were making quilts for everyone and giving them away to our families, friends, loved ones, whomever, whatever. And we realized that we did not own a lot of our own work.
Wow.
So what we decided to do, we started making quilt blocks. We are just give a theme, and this particular theme was learning how to make the queens.
Hmm.
And each one of the queens are separated from all of us. So we make enough to share, and we swap our blocks.
Okay.
And We decide on what size the block is, and that's usually it. And the free range is do whatever you want to do with it. Sometimes it's the pattern, sometimes it's the size, but the goal is to make enough quilt blocks to finish a quilt top fast, to
Mhm.
be able to keep or have in our own collection, because we realized we did not own a lot of our stuff. So
Mhm.
this is a representation of the quilt of the queens that I finished. I sat on this quilt for 2 years before I finished
Mhm.
the quilting on it, because I was nervous about my quilting skill. I
Mm.
can free motion on my domestic machine, but I had recently purchased a long arm and I was not confident enough
Mhm.
to load this quilt. So it's been sitting, it's been waiting. All the other ladies' quilts are done and they're beautiful and they're hanging and they're out in the world. And this one, mine is just now finished, and I am very pleased with it.
Mhm.
But the Soul Sisters are Miss Drusilla, Miss Pam, Miss LaForest,
Mhm.
Miss Roxy, and of course me, Yolanda. Now we have enough quilts of our own to say that we can now share or leave a heirlooms for our family.
Mhm.
And besides us working on our own quilts, we have a small, um, we have a grant from, oh, don't get me to tell it. I can't even say the name of it. Forgive me. But our service project, we don't just keep quilts for ourselves. Our service project actually um, goes back to giving the youth who are getting ready to go to college. They're out of East St. Louis
Mhm.
community, but Miss Pam, she's so talented. Pam Coaxum, she's a grant writer. She got approved for the grant, so now we have funding to make sure that each one of the recipients that are getting ready to go to college has their own personal quilt to go to
Mhm.
school.
Mhm.
So some people are quilting tops. Some people are long arming, me, and LaForest is long arming. But together, I think we have given out, I think about 30 quilts, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
And this
Mhm.
year, we have a new donor
Mhm.
who has she heard about the organization and what we were doing, and she was so excited. She made 9 quilt tops. So of
Yeah.
course these quilt tops got to be finished.
Right.
So the quilt sisters, the soul sisters got together, and we're making sure these quilts are going to be ready for the next class, which is coming up in June, to be
Wow.
presented with their quilts. So
Wow.
it's so we're not being selfish. We're making
Right.
sure that we're giving back to the community. And, our kids, our Black youth, they
Mhm.
need encouragement when they're going to school. So
Mhm.
part of it is have a hug from a quilt. Somebody loves you just to keep you warm.
Sure. From the community. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's amazing. And what you've mentioned coming out of COVID several times and then being long distance.
Mhm.
It used to be in quilting, you quilted with people in your immediate community. You sat around, you're either doing it by yourself or you're sitting around and doing it together,
Right.
whether it's a bee or now a guild, right? But you're able to find ways to do it long distance
Yes.
grade blocks. You make decisions about what it's going to be and your theme, and you're still able to engage in community while
Mhm.
you're making these quilts, across the country. And that's the joy of the interwebs and technology, that you can do all of this, and the post office, right? That you can ship these blocks and work together, to complete these projects. So I think that's huge. I think that's powerful. Whether it is the association that you work with, the organization that you work with, or like your quilt associations, like how we met, and we're part of NAC. the National
The
African.
National African American Quilt Guild. Yes,
Yes,
we are a national organization. I
yes,
must say, currently I am the treasurer,
yes.
and it is not a little job; it's a big job, but we make it work. If I'm not mistaken, I think we have 106
Yeah,
active members right
yeah,
now,
yeah.
and we have people from coast to coast of the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And when I tell you there's so much talent
Yes,
in this organization
yes.
that it's unfathomable. But you know what? It should be fathomable because we are a talented people.
Right. Right.
So with that being said, Nat, the National African American Quilt Guild is 3 years old now, and
Mm-hmm.
um, we have some wonderful founders, Miss Laura Casmore,
Mm-hmm.
Sharon Mooney, and Rhonda Masters are our original founders.
Mm-hmm.
And the last 2 years, we have, I think we're 3 years old. 4 years old. Forgive me. I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not the historian. Um, we have established a board,
Mm-hmm.
a board of members. And this year, we're going to have our first
Yeah.
National African American Quilt Guild retreat here
Yeah.
in the city of Fayetteville, North Carolina,
Woo
which
woo.
is right down the road from Raeford
Yeah.
Empowerment Quilts.
That's right.
So
That's right.
we're excited. Everything is coming together, and
Yes.
we're looking forward to the virtual turning into the local
Yes.
gathering and fellowship. So
Yes. Yes.
I'm
That is.
excited about that.
It is exciting. It is exciting. I'm honored to be a part. Thank you for introducing me to the group. So again, so much talent, so much expertise, so much fellowship and sisterhood, right, and encouragement. I mean, part of the reason why we're having Sunday Sewcases is because sisters in the guild said, "Hey, you want to showcase?" So folks, and wanted to come together in support of each other, Parliament Quilts, again to elevate and celebrate. And so
Mhm.
just continue to always be amazed and inspired and in community with, right? And an obligation to continue the tradition, to continue the story of service and expertise. So thank you so much for sharing that. Um, what would you say to an aspiring quilter who watches this, who might say, "Oh, I'm new to this," or "I've been quilting for a while, but I feel called to move into this other direction"? What are some words of wisdom that you'd like to share with them? I think you've shared some, but let's share a few more words of wisdom.
Well, there's no rules. You like it, you love it, you make it, no matter what that is. So, currently, I like, well, not just currently, I love snuggle quilts.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I don't know if you guys realize I'm not at home. I'm actually at work and I'm in a rental. So with that being said, I travel with my snuggly.
Mm-hmm.
So I love snugglies. So
Right.
guess what? You make your snuggly just the way you want to.
Right.
And I love Ankara. I add Ankara to it. So that's just make what you love.
Yes.
There's no rule.
Yes.
Use what you have. You don't have to have your fancy sewing machine. You can do it by hand. You don't have to have the latest and greatest
Mm-hmm.
tools, but there are a couple of things you should have. You should have a good sharp ruler. I'm sorry, a good sharp scissor. You
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily need a rotor cutter. You make sure you have good needle and thread, and good meaning whatever you can afford, as
Mm-hmm.
long as it works for you. Um, Make sure that you're willing to learn from other people. Be open to ask questions. Share your work with, if you don't know how to do it, it's okay. Ask
Mhm.
someone. And YouTube University is amazing.
Right.
You can find almost anything you want to out there on YouTube. Someone has done it. So
Yes.
even if you're shy about it, log on to YouTube, say, half square triangles, and
Mhm.
all these amazing videos will pop up. There's
Mhm.
101 ways to make half square triangles. So there's no wrong way to do it.
Sure. Sure.
So yeah, so when I travel with my sewing machine. So I have my sewing machine ready to go.
Right.
Don't feel like you have to spend 2 hours to create something.
Right.
Sometimes I just sit for 30 minutes. That's all I have.
Yeah.
Okay, what can I finish in 30 minutes? I can piece these scraps together and hopefully it'll come up with something.
Right.
So.
Right. Oh, that's so helpful. I think that's important too. All of what you said is important, but I think as I, reflect on what opened the conversation, right, to what you just finished with, you started with these pieces, and every piece is progress. So we can sit and sometimes look at a completed piece or feel like we have this vision in mind, and you start to get overwhelmed, or you thinking, oh, am I ever going to complete it, or if I'm ever going to, am I going to finish it? Oh, it's just so much to do, and you can get overwhelmed, and then we take our whips, our works in progress, and we put them aside, right? And you pull them out 2 years later. I think we were talking the other day, and somebody said that they took how many years? 20 years to complete something, a
Mhm.
little piece at a time,
Yep.
and you can still create something beautiful. Not every project has to be bed size. Not, you can make something small, you can make something quick, but every piece is progress.
Yes.
I think it's important for us, especially beginning quilters, to remember that, right? And all of the other things that you said. Love that you mentioned the tools that you can use, how to get started, how to stay inspired. It's just huge. And there are people who are out in the world who will appreciate those pearls of wisdom. So thank you, thank you, thank you. So we are going to finish up our conversation, folks. If you are watching, as I said, stay tuned. I will be sharing images of Miss Yolanda's wonderful artwork. How can we find you on the socials?
So I am only on one social. I've been told that I need more, but I am also okay. Transparency here. I am I'm older. I'm a forever student. So the last couple of years, I finished my RN nursing, registered nursing. So
Mhm.
currently, I am a registered nurse, and I'm glutton for punishment. So I decided I wanted to go back to school. So I am in school for nurse practitioner. I'm getting my master's, but I don't really have time for socials. So with that being said, I am Yolanda Sanity on Facebook. I
Mhm.
don't post a lot,
Mhm.
but when I do, I try to make it relevant.
Yeah.
And that's about it.
Yes.
But my 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 business is Sew Sanity Quilt Designs. I'm
Mhm.
sorry, Sew Sanity Designs. I do have an email, but I do not have a website.
Mhm.
That is to come.
Yep.
I have to fit it in. But
Got.
other than that, I'm just enjoying the process of trying to grow my family, trying to still identify who I am as an artist,
Mhm.
um, getting comfortable with sharing my work. That has been a lesson that has been inspiring for me. A few ladies have really encouraged me. Even my family, they have stated, "Your work is beautiful. Stop hiding it at home.
Mhm.
It's okay. Share it."
Right.
So,
Right.
and Just be courageous. Just share it,
Yes.
and it's
Yes.
okay. Even if it's at just at the state fair, it's okay. I
Yes.
had a quilt. I put it in the state fair. Oh, the judges gave me a whole bunch of points about it, but it
Right.
was okay
Right.
because I was courageous enough to put it in the fair.
That's right.
I mean, everybody has an opinion.
That's
It's up to
right.
you to decide if you want to follow it or not or accept it.
Right.
But
And
every creation is not for everybody. You
sure.
did not make it for them, you made it for yourself.
That's right. That's right. And why not, right? Why not? It's yours. It's a beautiful thing. I am honored that you chose to speak with us today, that you chose to share your quilt here, your expertise, your time. For someone who is not used to sharing, you certainly have shared quite a lot today. And
Thank you.
it is so appreciated. We are so appreciative. And hey, you don't need to be on 18 socials. All you need is one. So we will make sure that we list your handle here. Make sure that folks, if they want to celebrate you, they can find you and cheer you on. Or if they have questions, they can reach out to you. We are You'll see clips, you'll see connections on our Instagram, Parliament Quilts Instagram, Parliament Quilts and Crafts on Facebook. We are going to stay connected. So I'll tell you, whether you want to be shy or not, we're not going to let you be shy. We're going to be right joined at the hip, and we're going to be celebrating you and elevating you. And so I just continue to say thank you, thank you, thank you for all that you've done, all that you share, and all that you continue to share with the world. Thank you. Thank you to all of you who are watching. We hope that this inspires you to take up a new technique or to continue that work in progress that you might have stuff in your closet. Be bold, be courageous, do something different, maybe go against the grain, right? Or jump on YouTube and find that technique that you want to master. There is so much out there for you to use. As Nike says, just do it. And as we like to say at Parliament Quilts, take good care and make good quilts. So, hope to see you soon. Thank you for joining, and we'll talk. Take good care.
Thank you for the wonderful opportunity, and I'll see you soon.
See you soon. All right.
Thank you.